envelopes, made phone calls, leafleted out on the sidewalk. We worked hard, day and night, to get Governor Stevenson the nomination for president. But he didn't get that. But my father said, in a democracy, you never give up. You keep on keeping on. And so after that, I became very active in the political process, in the campaign for governor of California. I felt different and out of it. And I felt something was wrong with me. And when they started dating, I started dating my female friends just to be normal. And when my buddy wanted to double date, I double dated with a female friend. But to tell the truth, I was more interested in my buddy than in my date. I knew I was different. And it was a very lonely feeling. It was isolating. I was the only one. And I wanted to be like everybody else. But they were also fallible human beings. They kept other human beings as slaves. But because those slaves hungered for freedom and justice, and they struggled for it, and because their children and their grandchildren and the generations that followed maintained that struggle through the long years of Jim Crow and the years of the Civil Rights Movement, that today the descendants of slaves are in the halls of Congress as lawmakers. And at the opposite end of Pennsylvania Avenue, an African American is serving as the President of the United States in the White House. This is a great country. Yes, there are setbacks. Yes, there are some disastrous setbacks. We're making progress. 3 steps forward, sometimes 2 steps back, but then 3 steps forward again. We are at this point. Our mission as Americans isn't over. We will continue to reach for that highest star. And our American democracy will live long and prosper. That scene that we saw with Florida going, North Carolina going, and Ohio being, at that point, unsure, but looking like it might go for Donald Trump. It was an unbelievable, wrenching evening. And we still haven't really gotten over it. But it made me think how my parents might have felt when they got the notice that we would sell everything we own. And if we couldn't sell everything, we would have to abandon that when the soldiers came. How devastating would that have been? I kept thinking of that. And then to get imprisoned with guns pointed at you from sentry towers, searchlights, We went through an incredible, un-American hell. And yet here I am today and advocating against the government's mistakes and failures. American democracy is dependent on people like you and people like you to be actively engaged in this process. Because when you, as I described in my talk, when you look at the large historic span of this American democracy, we've had some horrible setbacks as a people. What happened to the Indians, the Native Americans, the Trail of Tears, the struggle of African Americans, the struggle of Latinos, the farm workers in California. We have had a lot of setbacks, but we have made incredible progress in that large scope of America. 8 years ago, when Barack Obama, a man with that African name, unquestionable African name, was elected the President of the United States by Americans, all of us. It was an amazing, thrilling feeling. But then when he got into office, the Republican refusal to accept him, to put up roadblocks everywhere. And now with the Supreme Court appointment, with the vacancy, their absolute refusal, going against the Constitution for a year, to not even consider a very eminently qualified candidate for a seat on the Supreme Court. This is what American democracy is. It's a messy, sometimes heartbreaking, and other times exhilarating process. But we, the people, have to be actively engaged, inspired by the basic shining ideals of our democracy, and continue to push it forward. Because we have moved forward. I, who grew up in prison unjustly, together with 120,000 other innocent people, and there were a series of goading insults and assaults on us during those 4 years of the war. I mean, a loyalty questionnaire, a year into imprisonment, and then, all the anguish that the people had to go through. And then they built a separate camp that they called a segregation center for those that answered no to those two key questions. And they had 3 layers of barbed wire fences and tanks patrolling them. It was a harsh camp. And the management was very cruel. And yet, here I am, talking from the stage in your university and talking about that shameful chapter, that hidden chapter. And so many people don't know about this yet, especially east of the Rockies. On the West Coast, they saw us being taken away. But because our history books are mute on the internment, people east of the Rockies are ill-informed. And that's why they can make statements like Donald Trump made during the campaign. Sweeping statements characterizing people coming from south of the border as criminals, and rapists, and murderers. And people of the Muslim faith are all potential terrorists. Because we don't know our history. We don't know the lessons of our history. So, my appeal to you, I implore all people who hold these ideals of America to be dear. You've got to engage. And only 200, well, Hillary won the popular vote by 200,000 votes. Just by the numbers, Hillary won. But we go by the electoral college process. And I do believe in the electoral college process because, we're a vast nation with different specifics throughout the various regions. The culture of the region, the economy of the region, the people of the region. And that diversity in America, going by regions, needs to be respected. And if you go by the popular vote, that could be considered tyranny of the majority, when the reality of each of these states, some very tiny, would be overwhelmed. So I know the man. In fact, I even had lunch with him. We had a press conference to promote the show. And near the end of that press conference, I raised my hand, fully expecting him to demur. I said, Mr. Trump, I'd like to invite you to have lunch with me in one of your restaurants as my guest to discuss marriage equality. This was before New York had marriage equality. And I wanted to, in front of all the press, I wanted him to say, no, I'm busy, I can't meet with you. But he surprised me. He said, okay, we'll meet. Have your people talk to my people and we'll arrange it. And it took a long time. About 3 or 4 months later, I got together with him to have lunch. And we discussed marriage equality. And I told him, you're a businessman. You know, if we have marriage equality in New York State, then it would be good for your business. People will stay in your hotel. They would eat in your restaurants. They would get married in your banquet halls and spend a lot of money. It'll be good for you. It's an advantage for you as a businessman. He said, yeah, that's true. But I believe in traditional marriage. I had to sort of grit my teeth. A man who's been married 3 times, who's had many affairs while married, says to me, and I've been now with Brad for 29 years, he believes in traditional marriage. I've said, you know, traditional marriage is where 2 people who love each other, who commit to each other, through thick and thin, as they say, in sickness or in health, and support each other and work with each other, a genuine partnership. That's traditional marriage. And incidentally, if they happen to be the same gender, the important thing is that commitment to love and to that one person. That's traditional marriage. But I didn't call his attention to his other 2 wives and the other women. And so we just agreed to disagree there. But the same comment that I keep repeating, we have to be actively engaged. And we will make progress. And I know that it won't be long, particularly after this, when we came so close, that we will see a woman as the President of the United States.